Hi, it's Dr. Eric Balcavage. I'm back for another edition of Methylation Monday. Last week we talked about what methylation is and how important it is in our health and our physiology. Today we're going to talk about where do you start with methylation? How do you get started? What most of you already know is that methylation is the hot thing in functional medicine. Everybody's kind of starting to dig into it, starting to try to figure out what it's all about. Most seminars you go to, somebody's mentioning methylation or genetic defects and genetic variants and SNPs. But where do you start with it? Well, if you don't have much of a background, what you don't want to do with the brand new patient coming into your practice is run a genetic variant panel and start treating them treating their SNPs that you see on the variant panel. Really what you want to do is you want to find out what's going on with your patient. So what are their primary symptoms? What are their secondary symptoms? What are the issues they're trying to address? Second thing you want to do is you want to get a fantastic history. Getting a good history tells the story of what's going on with your patient. It gives you plenty of clues as to where you need to start with the patient. The third thing you need to understand is, what have they done already? So if they have not been to another functional medicine practitioner, then you need to start with the basics. So what does that mean? You've got to address what I call the fitness factors. You've got to address their dietary fitness. You've got to get them on a good diet. So get them eating lots of veggies, nutrient-dense proteins, whole food fats in their oils, and low fructose fruits. That should be the bulk of their diet. Two, you need to address their sleep fitness. They've got to have good sleep, or they've got to have good sleep habits and start working on improving their sleep. You can't be watching TV at night, can't have all these alarm clocks and cell phones by their head and by their bed. They can't. You want to help them develop good sleep habits. The third thing you got to focus on and address is how do they breathe. If they've got poor respiratory fitness, you got to work on that, because if they're hypoxic, that's going to compromise their overall health and well-being. The fourth thing you got to address is their physical fitness. What's their posture? What's their joint mobility? What's their muscle function? What's their neural function like? If those things are compromised, you need to address those. We also need to take a look at their emotional fitness. What's going on between the 6 inches between their ears? Are they stressed out at work, at home, with their relationships, with their kids? What's going on that's creating stress in their life? You got to deal with it and you got to address that. You got to address those first, because trying to fix their metabolism, to try and fix their physiology or methylation without addressing those things first is like herding cats. Once you get those things started, now you're going to start working on the metabolics. And you don't start necessarily with methylation. You're going to start with probably the four big things that need to be addressed. You've got to regulate their blood sugar. The dietary fitness will help that. You've got to decrease their inflammation. You know, most of you know which nutrients to give to help calm the inflammatory cascade, but we'll talk about that in future videos. The third thing you got to do is you got to address any anemia patterns, because a person can't get healthy if they're anemic. And fourth, you got to address gut function, because the gut is the window to almost everything else. Whatever you put into their body from a supplemental standpoint isn't going to do them much good if they have poor gastric function. So you got to heal the gut. Got to kill off any infectious processes that are going there, whether it's yeast, bacteria, or parasites. So you got to address that and digestive function. So that's primarily where you're going to start with most patients. Now, if they've been to 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 10 functional medicine practitioners already, they're already on an anti-inflammatory paleo-ish diet, if they're already done multiple gut support protocols and detox protocols and all these other testing, and they're still not well, you probably don't need to reinvent the wheel. Review it, see what they've done, see what their current status is, but this is a patient that you probably then would say, I'm going to start taking a look at their methylation processes, because so much other stuff has already been done and they haven't gotten well. In that situation, genetic variant report, you go to 23andMe, have the patient get their raw data, then generate a report from someplace like MTHFR support. You can go to hdrilabs.com, order their methylation panel, and get that process started. But you don't start with methylation if they haven't done the basics first. Okay? So with your patients, start with the basics, good history, get as much detail as possible. If they haven't started with the fitness factors, do those first. Once you address those things and you start working on the metabolism and they're still struggling, then it's time to start looking at SNPs and methylation panel. If they've been to multiple other practitioners before, they've done all the basics, they've done gut rehab, blood sugar control, anti-inflammatory diet, detoxification, and addressed adrenals and still nothing's working, this is the patient you want to dig into their methylation. Okay, so I hope that helps. If you need more information or want more information sooner on methylation, a more in-depth view of what's going on, go to www.themethylationdoctortutorials.com and you can order online the videos from my last seminar, and you can watch them in your leisure, study all you want and learn all you want about methylation. All right? I'll see you next week.